On April 6, 2016, a group of Park Hill South teachers attended the Iowa One-to-One Institute, a conference where school districts learn from each other about innovative teaching and administrative practices that enhance one-to-one learning. In this video, Park Hill South teachers share their findings they think will help you in our transition to a one-to-one school. But first, a few were willing to share their experience with using computers in the classroom prior to attending the conference.
Some of my favorites have been making podcasts and sometimes like videos in class to communicate an idea as an alternative to a paper, which has been really great. I love being able to poll students live and be able to analyze the results right there for them. It could be like a goal on ACT or a check-in on how much they've been reading lately.
I like the quick assessment pieces. In math, it's really hard to gauge whether kids understand it, and the technology in the one-to-one piece allows me to give quick formative assessments to quickly grab, let's see, are they getting it or are they not getting it, and to make adjustments while I teach that material.
Meaningful games that help students to learn without them realizing that they're learning, and this doesn't always necessarily apply to like across all subjects, or at least applying those concepts that make games interesting.
The first one that I do a lot of is filming and video making of my students, either on their phones or on the device with like Video Note on D2L and stuff like that. Because a lot of times if we do skits live in class or things using the language, it can be really tricky because I don't have time necessarily to hear them as many times as I want to. Whereas when they film them and they send them to me, I can watch that video several times to give them better feedback or to give the class as a whole better feedback of what we need to work on.
I'll have a lesson already planned and I'll hear something on the radio in the morning, like a news event has happened. And I can quickly go into Google Classroom, tweak it up online, resend it, and I don't have to go make new copies. And it's something that's super, super timely and relevant.
Go out and find experts in their field who I can grab and present to the students. So kids have access to the smartest, most intelligent people in the world to present ideas.
A lot of times if we're doing new vocab, I'll send them to a website. So for example, if we're doing clothing, I'll send them to an online clothing store written in Spanish, and they have to figure out the vocab themselves. Or when we watch videos, they have to go through and they get to listen as many times as they want to instead of me just having to play it over.
Less paper in general. I really love cutting down just the paper load that we have physically.
One of the things I really like is that I don't have as much of a problem keeping things organized when I'm dealing with electronic copies. Not to say that one-to-one will completely eliminate paper. I still like to assign paper things. I like to have them like journal and things of that sort. But for some of the major things, it's eliminated a lot of the paper and just clutter.
Doing video making activities, the video is too large, or it doesn't save, or it doesn't send to me. And a lot of those kinks I've kind of worked out as I've gone. But there's been times where I've had to like have kids remake stuff and they get really irritated about it and then they just want to give up. And then just any kind of product that they've made online, so sometimes they'll do like a Canva or a poster or something online. And then sometimes you get that issue where it doesn't save and then they have to either go back and redo it or just redo the whole thing on paper and they get really frustrated. So that's one of those things where technology, if it works, is really motivating for them, and if it doesn't, it can be like catastrophic.
There are connection issues or students are using it as a distraction. I guess that between the two, I would argue that keeping kids on task would be the most challenging because you're giving them a whole new stream of distractions. You're giving them internet access, you're giving them Messenger, and keeping them on task is one thing I've had to deal with that has made things not so successful.
Like I understand how to implement one-to-one, in a classroom. I understand how to use technology in a classroom. What I'm really looking forward to is getting some. I want to see innovation. I want to see some things that I haven't seen before. I want to be wowed. And I'll be honest, like a lot of times I go to these things and I don't always get that. And I really want, I want to be like, oh, I hadn't thought about that.
So when I think about next year, I think I'm still kind of in denial mode and I just push it to the back of my brain. But I'm hoping to leave with a better vision of what my classroom's really going to look like in the fall. how much time I'm going to spend each day using the technology versus doing it the way I've been doing.
But I think knowing that this is really coming, I'm going to look at it with a new lens and be able to see really truly what changes are there that I can make between having that device that's in the room all the time versus the device being on their person that they bring.
Technology is not going to replace good instruction, but it can enhance instruction, and using the right technology and using it in the right ways. It also allows for technology can also allow for greater differentiation of instruction and individualization for learners to demonstrate in multiple ways the same concept.
Things that I took away, a lot of them have to do with kind of Google extensions and Google apps. The first one was there's this highlighter tool that I can actually download highlighters into my Google document, and so instead of having to type feedback for every single student on a document in Spanish, I don't have to sit there and type things out. It takes a long time. So instead I could take these highlighters and assign them a color that means something, and I can share it with the students. So if they wrote something for me in Spanish, I could highlight and color it red, and red means it's a spelling error.
I want to make available the tools that the computer allows the kids to have. And so the one-to-one conference gave me a better picture of what that will look like in terms of learning and teaching in the classroom. There are several teachers there who had been doing this for many years, and we kind of learned from their mistakes. You know, this does work, this doesn't work.
I was very impressed with the range of workshops they had and keynotes that they had. We did have, the lower level issues with connection. I remember my first session, the internet went out, and so it was really actually neat to see an educator have to, on the fly, say, all right, well, if this were a classroom scenario, here's what I would do. We made modifications on the spot, so it was neat to problem solve together and see what he came up with.
Here's where I want you to get to. How you demonstrate that is up to you, whether that be through video, whether that be, they can write a paper if they want to write a paper, or whether that's creating a skit or doing those kinds of things. You can use technology to enhance that.
Another one that I really liked was this teacher used Google Forms for her grading. So she basically took all of her current rubrics, put them on Google Forms. So she kind of showed us how to lay it out in the Google Forms. So if I have students who are giving presentations or doing something oral in Spanish, I can really quickly give them feedback with just the touch of a finger. It goes into a spreadsheet for me, and then I can take that information and I can email it out individually to the student.
Teacher who was able to make assessments online, and then she would actually see the responses through Google Forms, and she would, so it wasn't automatic grading, but it was a way for her to get all the responses from the kids, see who's learning and not learning, and assess that. And then with a click of a button, she was able to send those answers back to the students through email.
Is that a lot of schools that have had one-to-one in place and really have had a lot of buy-in, that they're not just using the tool anymore as another way to deploy information, but they're using student-centered activities in ways that honestly I'd forgotten about, ways that really left me excited and challenged me as an educator. A lot of it felt kind of like a pipe dream to me, but it really refreshed attitudes toward my own projects that I do. And I mean particularly service learning. So they weren't just using the tools to connect with the world, they were looking for actual concrete opportunities to engage in the world. And they were talking about maker spaces in their school buildings. They were talking about ways to apply problem solving, ways to solve actual issues in their community, and to go forth and make action happen. So they were producing products that they would show to clients, whether real or fake. And I thought that was really inspiring to see that an 8th grader or a freshman could pull something like that off. And I thought, how can we do that in our classroom?